Good morning, everyone. It's okay to say good morning. Yeah, because Ayur Harati Vaipum Sam. It's a good morning because when the sun rises and you're hearing and chanting, it means that you're developing your spiritual bank account. If you're not, then you're wasting a day and the sun's going over speaking to you saying, I'm taking away your life. So Vaishnavas can say good morning. Prabhupada used to say it on his morning walks. We can be normal people, but not at the same time. And also, I'd like to dedicate this class today to Yashoda Vatsal Prabhu's dear father, whose name is say it again, please. Suklal Sandane. Prabhu, his dear father had suddenly passed away last night due to heart attack. So Yashoda Vatsal Prabhu just informed us, and then he's getting on a plane to go to do his duties, his last rites. It's a common incident. Of course, we can expect all such changes in life as we're in a community. It's part of the way that we grow together is to support one another through birth, disease, old age, death, and so forth. As inevitable, albeit superfluous aspects of our life, it still affects us. But we all process it through the lens of Krishna consciousness, and remember how even Kṛṣṇa, end of Kurukshetra, went to perform the last rites for all those who were grieving, not the least of which was Yudhishthira, who was disconsolate, and then Kṛṣṇa took him to speak to Bhishma in his last days. So we pray that Yashoda Vatsal's dear father receives shelter at the lotus feet of the Lord in eternal service. Om Tat Sat. So this first chapter of the Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita begins with obviously a Mangalacharana, which we just sang, which is a prerequisite for entering into discussion of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. One must seek the blessings of the previous acharyas and not think oneself self-sufficient in speaking Krishna Katha. And one also seeks the blessings of one's Guru Varga. And I'll read the English parts if you want to just put up. The invocation involves three processes defining the objective: offering benedictions and offering obeisances. The first two verses offer respectful obeisances generally and specifically to the Lord, who is the object of worship. In the third verse, I indicate the absolute truth, who is the ultimate substance. With such a description, one can visualize the supreme truth. In the fourth verse, I have invoked the benediction of the Lord upon all the world, praying to Lord Chaitanya for his mercy upon all. In that verse, I have also explained the external reason for Lord Chaitanya's incarnation. But in the fifth and sixth verses, I have explained the prime reason for his advent. In these 6 verses, I have described the truth about Lord Chaitanya, whereas in the next 5, I have described the glory of Lord Nityananda. The next 2 verses describe the truth of Advaita Prabhu, and the following verse describes the Panchatattva, the Lord, his plenary portion, his incarnation, his energies, and his devotees. These 14 verses, therefore, offer auspicious invocations and describe the supreme truth. I offer my obeisances unto all my Vaishnava readers as I begin to explain the intricacies of all these verses. I request all my Vaishnava readers to read and hear with rapt attention this narration of Sri Kṛṣṇa Chaitanya as inculcated in the revealed scriptures. Let Lord Krishna enjoys by manifesting himself as the spiritual masters, the devotees, the diverse energies, the incarnations, and the plenary portions. They are all 6 in one. I therefore worship the lotus feet of these 6 diversities of the one truth by invoking their benedictions. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the spiritual masters, the devotees of the Lord's incarnations, his plenary portions, his energies, and the primeval Lord himself, Sri Kṛṣṇa Chaitanya. I first offer my respectful obeisances at the lotus feet of my initiating spiritual master and of all my instructing spiritual masters. My instructing spiritual masters are Sri Rupa Goswami, Sri Sanatan Goswami, Sri Bhatta Raghunath, Sri Jiva Goswami, Sri Gopal Bhatta Goswami, and Srila Raghunath Das Goswami. These 6 are my instructing spiritual masters, and therefore I offer millions of respectful obeisances at their lotus feet. There are innumerable devotees of the Lord, of whom Srivas Thakur is the foremost. I offer my respectful obeisances thousands of times unto their lotus feet. Advaita Acharya is the Lord's partial incarnation, and therefore I offer my obeisances millions of times at his lotus feet. Srila Nityananda Ram is the plenary manifestation of the Lord, and I have been initiated by him. I therefore offer my respectful obeisances unto his lotus feet. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the internal potencies of the Lord, of whom Sri Gadadhar Prabhu is the foremost. Lord Sri Kṛṣṇa Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the personality of Godhead himself, and therefore I offer innumerable prostrations at his lotus feet. Having offered obeisances unto the Lord and all his associates, I shall now try to explain these 6 diversities in one. Although I know that my spiritual master is a servitor of Sri Kṛṣṇa Chaitanya, I know him also as a plenary manifestation of the Lord. According to the deliberate opinion of all revealed scriptures, the spiritual master is non-different from Krishna. Lord Krishna, in the form of the spiritual master, delivers his devotees. Acharyamam vijanayam navamanyeta karichit namartya buddhyasuyeta sarva deva mayo guru. One should know the Acharya as myself and never disrespect him in any way. One should not envy him, thinking him an ordinary man, for he is the representative of all the demigods. One should know the instructing spiritual master to be the personality of Godhead, Krishna, the personality of Krishna. Lord Krishna manifests himself as the supersoul and as the greatest devotee of the Lord. O my Lord, transcendental poets and experts in spiritual science could not fully express their indebtedness to you, even if they were endowed with the prolonged lifetime of Brahma. For you appear in 2 features, externally as the Acharya and internally as the Supersoul, to deliver the embodied living being by directing him how to come to you. Does that verse sound familiar? See? To those who are constantly devoted to serving me with love, I give the understanding by which they can come to me. Purport. This verse of the Bhagavad Gita 10:10 clearly states how Govindadev instructs his bona fide devotees. The Lord declares that by enlightenment in theistic knowledge, he awards attachment for him to those who constantly engage in his transcendental loving service. This awakening of divine consciousness enthralls a devotee who thus relishes his eternal transcendental mellow. Such an awakening is awarded only to those convinced by devotional service about the transcendental nature of the personality of Godhead. They know that the supreme truth, the all-spiritual and all-powerful person, is one without a second and has fully transcendental senses. He is the fountainhead of all emanations. Such pure devotees, always merged in knowledge of Kṛṣṇa and absorbed in Kṛṣṇa consciousness, exchange thoughts and realizations as great scientists exchange their views and discuss the results of their research in scientific academies. Such exchanges of thoughts in regard to Kṛṣṇa give pleasure to the Lord, who therefore favors such devotees with all enlightenment. Sugiwa. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Swayam Bhagavan, taught Brahma and made himself realized. Please hear attentively what I shall speak to you, for transcendental knowledge about me is not only scientific, but also full of mysteries. By my causeless mercy, be enlightened in truth about my personality, manifestations, qualities, and pastimes. Prior to the cosmic creation, only I exist, and no phenomena exist, either gross, subtle, or primordial. After creation, only I exist in everything, and after annihilation, only I remain eternally. What appears to be truth without me is certainly my illusory energy, for nothing can exist without me. It is like a reflection of a real light in the shadows. For in the light there are neither shadows nor reflections. As the material elements enter the bodies of all living beings, and yet remain outside them, I exist within all material creations, and yet am not within them. A person interested in transcendental knowledge must therefore always directly and indirectly inquire about it to know the all-pervading truth. All glories to Chintamani and my initiating spiritual master, Somagiri. All glories to my instructing spiritual master, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who wears peacock feathers in his crown. Under the shade of his lotus feet, which are like desire trees, Jaya Shri Radharani enjoys the transcendental mellow of an eternal consort. Since one cannot visually experience the presence of the Supersoul, he appears before us as a liberated devotee. Such a spiritual master is none other than Kṛṣṇa himself. One should therefore avoid bad company and associate only with devotees. With their realized instructions, such saints can cut the knot, connecting one with activities unfavorable to devotional service. The spiritually powerful message of Godhead can be properly discussed only in a society of devotees, and it is greatly pleasing to hear in that association. If one hears from devotees, the way of transcendental experience quickly opens, and gradually one attains firm faith in that, in due course develops. One attains firm faith that in due course develops into attraction and devotion. A pure devotee constantly engaged in the loving service of the Lord is identical with the Lord, who is always seated in his heart. Saints are my heart, and only I am their hearts. They do not know anyone but me, and therefore I do not recognize anyone besides them as mine. Saints of your caliber are themselves places of pilgrimage. Because of their purity, they are constant companions of the Lord, and therefore they can purify even the places of pilgrimage. Such pure devotees are of two types: personal associates, parishats, and neophyte devotees, sadhakas. There are three categories of incarnations of Godhead: partial incarnations, qualitative incarnations, and empowered incarnations. The Purushas and Matsya are examples of partial incarnations. Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva are qualitative incarnations. Empowered incarnations are those like the Kumaras, King Prithu, and Mahamuni Vyasa, the compiler of the Vedas. The personality of Godhead exhibits himself in two kinds of forms, Prakash and Vilas. When the personality of Godhead expands himself in many forms, all non-different in their features, as Lord Kṛṣṇa did when he married 16,000 queens and when he performed his rasa dance, such forms of the Lord are called manifested forms, Prakash Vigrahas. It is astounding that Lord Sri Kṛṣṇa, who is one without a second, expanded himself into 16,000 similar forms to marry 16,000 queens in their respective homes. When Lord Kṛṣṇa, surrounded by groups of cowherd girls, began the festivities of the rasa dance, the Lord of all mystic powers placed himself between each two girls. When the cowherd girls and Kṛṣṇa thus joined together, each girl thought that Kṛṣṇa was dearly embracing her alone. To behold this wonderful pastime of the Lord's, the denizens of heaven and their wives, all very eager to see the dance, flew in the sky in their hundreds of airplanes. They showered flowers and beat sweetly on drums. If numerous forms, all equal in their features, are displayed simultaneously, such forms are called Prakash Vigrahas of the Lord. But when the numerous forms are slightly different from one another, they are called Vilas Vigrahas. When the Lord displays numerous forms with different features by his inconceivable potencies, such forms are called Vilas Vigrahas. Examples of such Vilas Vigrahas are Baladev, Narayan in Vaikuntha Dham, and the Chaturvyuha, Vasudev, Sankarshana, Pradyumna, and Aniruddha. The energies, consorts of the Supreme Lord, are of three kinds: the Lakshmis in Vaikuntha, the queens in Dwarka, and the gopis in Vrindavan. The gopis are the best of all, for they have the privilege of serving Sri Kṛṣṇa, the primeval Lord, the son of the king of Vraj. The personal associates of the primeval Lord, Sri Kṛṣṇa, are his devotees, who are identical with him. He is complete in his entourage of devotees. Now I have worshipped all the various levels of devotees. Worshipping them is the source of all good fortune. So we'll end there. And today we'll be reading from the first couple of verses from the prayers of Queen Kunti, which are now a subject of meditation. Anybody started yet? Everyone started? Now you know it's better get a good head start, right? No panic at the end. We're dedicated to memorizing these prayers together and finding it easier as we go, right? Because we can surprise ourselves and also notice that for those who sincerely try and get as much exposure as possible, as early as possible, Kṛṣṇa helps those who help themselves. And today we'll start with Queen Kunti's prayers, which begin at, first part of the quiz is, where does it begin? Okay. I failed, you passed. Okay. Kunti uvacha Namaste Purusham Tvadyam Ishvaram Prakrite Param Alaksham Sarvabhutanam Antar Bahir Avastitam Kunti uvacha Namaste Purusham Tvadyam Ishvaram Prakrite Param Alaksham Sarvabhutanam Antar Bahir Avastitam. Srimati Kunti said, O Kṛṣṇa, I offer my obeisances unto you because you are the original personality of Godhead. and are unaffected by the qualities of the material world. You are existing both within and without everything. Yet you are invisible to all. May we have the version with the word for word, please? Kunti vacha namaste purusham dvadyam ishvaram prakrite param alaksham sarva bhutanam antar bahir avastitam. Kunti vacha namaste purusham dvadyam ishvaram prakrite param alaksham sarva bhutanam antar bahir avastitam. Kunti vacha Namaste Purusham Tvadyam Prakrite Param Kunti Uvacha. Srimati Kunti said, Namaste, let me bow down. Purusham, the Supreme Person. Tva, you. Adyam, the original. Ishvaram, the controller, Prakrite, of the material cosmos. Param, beyond. Alakshyam, the invisible. Sarva, all. Bhutanam, of living beings. Anta, within. Bahi, without. Avastitam, existing. Purport. Srimati Kunti Devi was quite aware that Kṛṣṇa is the original personality of Godhead, although he was playing the part of her nephew. Such an enlightened lady could not commit a mistake by offering obeisances unto her nephew. Therefore she addressed him as the original Purusha beyond the material cosmos. Although all living entities are also transcendental, they are neither original nor infallible. The living entities are apt to fall down under the clutches of material nature, but the Lord is never like that. In the Vedas, therefore, he is described as the chief among all living entities. Nityo nityanam, chaitanash chaitananam. Then again, he is addressed as Ishvara, or the controller. The living entities or the demigods like Chandra and Surya are able to some extent, like Chandra and Surya are also to some extent Ishvara, but none of them is the supreme Ishvara or the ultimate controller. He is the Parameshvara or the supreme or the super soul. He is both within and without. Although he was present before Srimati Kunti as her nephew, he was also within her and everyone else. In the Bhagavad Gita 15:15, the Lord says, I am situated in everyone's heart, and only due to me one remembers, forgets, or is cognizant, etc. Through all the Vedas I am to be known, because I am the compiler of the Vedas, and am the teacher of the Vedanta. Queen Kunti affirms that the Lord, although both within and without all living beings, is still invisible. The Lord is, so to speak, a puzzle for the common man. Queen Kunti experienced personally that Lord Kṛṣṇa was present before her, yet he entered within the womb of Uttara to save her embryo from the attack of Ashvatthama's Brahmastra. Kunti herself was puzzled about whether Sri Kṛṣṇa is all-pervasive or localized. In fact, he is both, but he reserves the right of not being exposed to persons who are not surrendered souls. This checking curtain is called the Maya energy of the Supreme Lord, and it controls the limited vision of the rebellious soul. It is explained as follows. Here we have the famous prayers of Kunti Devi, starting with Namaste Purusham Tvadyam Ishvaram Prakrite Param, which she's offering obeisances to her nephew, but actually she's fully cognizant that he's the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And he's playing the part of her nephew, which is one of the bewildering aspects of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is known as Jananivasa. He walks among the Jana. It means he walks among the general populace. Not just walks, but he interacts with other living entities in relationships like mother, father, cousin, brother, nephew, or auntie, and so forth. And this is the prerogative of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who has... Can you move the purport up to the top, please? Thank you. Who has expanded himself... No, just top of the purport. Thank you. Expanded himself for his own enjoyment. Eko Bahushyam means the one becomes many for his enjoyment, and the enjoyment is the loving exchanges he has with his devotees. In the material world, Krishna is neutral towards everyone. Samoham sarva bhuteshu name dveshosti na priya eva janti tumam bhaktya maite teshu chapyaham. Where Krishna says, Samoham. Samoham. I'm equal to everyone. Sarva bhuteshu, that means all living entities. And name dvesho, he has no objection to anyone. Stinapriya, and nor is anyone dear to him. He remains at arm's length from the souls in the material world, fulfilling their desires. Naishampara varamatira bhavato nanu sajjantori atatma surido jagatas tatapi samseva yasuratayo revate prasada samsevanu rupa udayam naparavaratvam. As Prahlad Maharaj says that Naisha Paravaramatu Bhavato Nanusyaj Jantori Atama Surido Jagatas Tatapi. That the Lord only, he's like the Lord is like a desire tree. And the desire tree doesn't consider para avara, whether somebody's higher or lower. He only considers sevanu rupa. What is the form of their service? What kind of mood do they have towards him? Sevanu rupam udayuna paravaratvam seva. What's the last line? Seva. That's the last one. Sevanu rupa udayuna paravaratvam. Now paravaratvam means he doesn't consider the higher or lower, and he's just like a desire tree. Suratoror. Toror means a tree. Sevatoror. So he fulfills the desires of everyone. In the material world, the living beings are in a state of ignorance. They're ignoring the Lord. So the Lord doesn't interact with them until they become interested in Him. Samaham sarvabhuteshu name dveshosti priya ye bhajanti means when they express their sense of devotion to the Lord. Now, parents, when they raise children, correct me if I'm wrong, but they're waiting for a time when the child recognizes the parents, besides just as order suppliers. Because baby doesn't really think of the parents as friends or that they have any intellectual capacity. They're basically on the level of annamoy. They just feed me, and I'll cry if you don't. Just watch me. And as a child grows up, there's a point at which, in maturity, the child approaches the parents and says, "Oh, I brought you a card out of appreciation for all you've done for me over the last 18 years. And the more the child recognizes the parent and sees that there's an actual deeper relationship between order carrier and dependent, then a relationship starts. So living entities in the material world are described as being dependent. In the verse later on in the purport, Nityo Nityanam, Chaitanas Chaitananam, Eko Bahunam Yo Vidadhati Kaman. Vidadhati Kaman just means they're desiring many things, but and Kṛṣṇa's just supplying them. And this is the neutral stage of the living entities. They're simply absorbed in the external energy. So Kunti here is giving an indication of the position of somebody who's awakened to their sense of maturity as a living entity. And Namaste Purusham Tvadyam Ishvaram Prakrite Param. That now I want to offer my obeisances unto you. This is the awakening of a sense of bhakti in the heart of a living entity. That I recognize that Kṛṣṇa is my Lord. In fact, there may be a time in which one doesn't recognize Kṛṣṇa, but one recognizes that there is a supreme spirit or a supreme controller, and one has a feeling of calling out to the Lord. In fact, it's mentioned how Gajendra had called out to the Lord before he had a clear idea of who he was calling out for. And it's in that way of beseechingly calling out to the Lord that the Lord then responds. So, one of the important points in our philosophy is that the Lord is responsive. He responds. And the spond, interestingly, if you trace it out, means that you make a sound. Like transpond. You've heard of that, right? Transponder. The flight from Malaysia Airlines. Is there enough air in here? You're all air starved, I can tell. We would like to have 82% more oxygen. That includes cross ventilation and fans, if necessary, to get to the 82% increase. And if elected, I guarantee an 82% increase in oxygen for all citizens. The transponder went out on the airline and it got lost. And there's a way that Kṛṣṇa is responsive to us when he hears a sound other than look at me or where's my stuff and that's mine, don't touch it, etc. There's an awakening in the life of a soul in the material world by association with great souls, that one may come to feel some sense of bhakti and want to call out to the Lord. And anyone, bhaktyatu tosha bhagavan gajayutapaya, we know from Prahlad Maharaj, who said that Gajendra called out to the Lord, and therefore the Lord responded to him. He came immediately. So there's a way in which when we come to this point in our life when we realize that the Lord is responsive, that if I say something to him with feeling, then he'll say something to me also. And we just heard it in the preamble to the Chaitanya Charitamrita. Kaviraj Goswami quotes 10:10, Tesham satata yuktanam bhajatam priti. Bhajatam priti. And this bhaj means to worship. And how priti, if there's some love, there's a quality of the bhajan. Purvakam dadami Dadami means I give something. It's like he's responding. Damye tat Ritambama. This is also Lord Ramachandra says, I respond. Sakradeva prapano yas. Tavasmiti chayachate. Damye tat Ritambama. He said, if somebody says that you send out this signal, if you want to send out a signal, say, Kṛṣṇa, I surrender to you. Sakradeva prapano yas. And Ramachandra said, you say that one time, Sakrit Eva only. Sakrit Eva. Just say it one time. I dare you. Prapano yes, that I surrender. Tavas miticha yachite. That he says, from that day forward, then I will be your protector. He won't forget it one time. That's how responsive he is. So basically, every living entity has a little hair trigger. You know what a hair trigger is? You're not gun nuts, right? Say no, I'm not. Yeah, we're not. We don't have a lot of guns in our community. A hair trigger means some guns, their trigger. I'm not either, so don't get me wrong here. I just grew up in America, so I know these things. So the trigger is so sensitive that if you barely tap it, it's called a hair trigger and it goes off. So hair trigger means you don't have to pull it very hard. You just have to barely touch it and then bang, it goes off. So we have that hair trigger. If we just say, Kṛṣṇa, I surrender to you. Then Sakradeva prapano yes, tavasmiti chayachite. That Kṛṣṇa is, who Lord Ramachandra said, I heard that. Kṛṣṇa is waiting to hear it. That the soul has come to a point of maturity. Ye bhajanti tumam bhaktya. That's the second half of the verse I quoted earlier, in which everything changes. The relationship changed. Hey, you look different. What happened to you? You look brighter, happier. You're dressing different now. What's up with you anyway? It's like, I have a relationship. Yeah, that's what happens to us. Everything's about us when we're in an immature stage. It's all about my personal needs, and we don't even recognize our parents, and we don't recognize God. We just eat. And where's the rest of it? And why wasn't there more? And how come it wasn't on time? Blah, blah, blah. The living entity, immature in the material world. But when there's an awakening of understanding from this verse, Namaste, there's a way that, no, not me. I'm offering my obeisance to you. I recognize that Ishvara, God, He's there. He's supplying everything. It's really an awakening of gratitude. They say thank you, meaningfully. And then Kṛṣṇa, ye bhajanti tumam bhaktya. When there's that tiny, tiny expression of a soul towards Him, then His heart goes out to that person. His vow is that now this person's mine. And I'm ye bhajanti tumam bhaktya, mai te shuchapyaham. Kṛṣṇa said, okay, we're together now. We're back together. It's like, why do you look so? I'm back together. We got back together. That's why I feel so good. That's the sojourn of living entity in the material world, lost without a relationship, and then said, what happened to you? You look so nice. It's like, we got back together. And that's the purpose of the material world, is to get back together with Kṛṣṇa. Otherwise, we have a terrible relationship in the material world. Durgani te padayugale hamsasang. There's a very difficult relationship we have with the material world. But if we can develop Hamsa Sangha, get association of the swan-like personalities who have a relationship with Kṛṣṇa, it's very edifying. We feel happy and well aligned. So this is a starting verse where we can take shelter. Kunti is offering her obeisances. She's admitting something that the soul is just waiting to express, is that you are the original personality. That's something that when we sing in the morning, Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami, that's why it feels so nice. To stand before the deity, Prabhupada introduced, you come here, you just stand before the deity, the curtain opens, and sing this song. Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. I worship this original person. That's bhakti. Very simple. God's there all the time for us. And then, what's up with you? I was like, I forgot. I got distracted. Sun got in my eyes. Dog ate my homework. And if you just remember that what Kunti is saying here, you are the original personality of Godhead. And then what kind of friends do you have anywhere that are unaffected by the qualities of the material world? That's the kind of friend you want to have. The person who's unaffected. You can be proud to have a friend like that doesn't have any involvement with the material world, because it's such an embarrassment, the material world. It's a way that, as mentioned by Karbhajana Muni in the 11th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, he said that when one comes in contact with Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he's able to overcome the embarrassment of being involved with the material world. Everyone tries to hide it. They're part of the material world, and we might play this game where we're trying to pretend everything's okay. But it's really not. In fact, I've seen it myself as my family got older. I had that perspective with my parents because I was the last one into the family. What's that? There's FIFO, LIFO, last out, last in, first out. Well, I haven't been the first out. Sister already left. So I forget what that's, last in, last out. First out, FIFO, it's FIFO. I was a FIFO child. I hope I'm the last out. In any case, then I could see that aging process, and then there's a lot of cover-up, like trying to hold everything together like it's okay, and then when somebody does leave, everyone acts surprised, like what happened. And in the 15th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, Kṛṣṇa talks about that. Ukramantam stitam vapi bunjanam bhagunan vitam vimuda. Don't be stupid, he said. Vimuda nana pashyanti. Don't be such an idiot. Try to understand what's going on. Vimuda nana pashyanti. Pashyanti jnana chakshusa. Get a little knowledge about what's actually happening here. And don't act surprised. Don't try to cover it up. It's like we had a good run. That was the theme. That, yeah, we had a good run. Not so good. Main thing is, Namaste Purusham Tvajam. Just admit that Krishna is Ishvara and you're not. Fair enough? Makes life easy. Ishavasyam idam sarvam yakinchajaga. Just sign over all your stuff. And say, like, no, it's not mine, it belongs to Krishna, I'll just take whatever I need. That's the sane way to live. And then, if you can express with devotion a sense of Krishna, you're the original Ishvara. Keep going down. Alaksham sarvabhutanam. Alaksham means invisible. Sarvabhutanam antarbahiravastitam. But that we should understand that he's within and without everything. And that he pervades even our senses. As Brahma had mentioned, if Brahma can't find Kṛṣṇa with his senses, then nobody can. When he came out onto the lotus flower, Tvatsambhava atonvira pashyamanas tvam bijam atmani tatam sabahir vachintya abhir. Now, what is it? Navinda abda shatu apsun nimajamano jaten kore jata ho kalabeta bijam. He came out on the lotus and he looked around. And Nija Apsamano mentioned there he dove into the water. I told that to somebody the other day and they said, I didn't know he dove into the water. He climbed down from the lotus flower and there was the Garbhodaka ocean. So he was so eager to find his source that Nija Apsu Nimajamana means you think of Brahma. And he came out the lotus flower. He climbed down and then he dove in. And he's swimming around for 100 years looking, see where did I come from. And then he realized, what's the one that says he realized they were pervading as ekastvameva jagadan etamamusha yatvam adyanta yo pratagavasyasi madhyatascha shishva guna vyatikaram nijamaya edam nane ter avasitas taranu pravishtaha. He went back on the lotus and he performed some austerity to try to understand Kṛṣṇa. And that's what we can do, because we can have this feeling that I want to have a connection with Kṛṣṇa, and then we can get that connection through the mercy of devotees that Prahlad prayed for also. Evam janam nipatitam bravabahi kupe kama bikama arayam prapatam prasangat kritvatmersat shurarshina bhagavan grihito soham katam nuvishuje tava britya sevam. Britya seva means he realizes that there is God, and even though the Shringadev was standing right before him, he said, the way to actually see you is not with my normal eyes. It's Britya Sevam. I was overcome by the material nature, and I was as if thrown into a well full of snakes. My spiritual master came and saved me. So we can take up service to the Guru Parampara, Britya Sevam. Then that's the life of auspiciousness. It's like Brahma took tapasya. Then he could understand Kṛṣṇa, who revealed first that he pervaded everything, including his senses, just like fragrance pervades the earth. It can only be extracted by a flower that grows out. So Kunti's setting the way that we can understand God. This is a profound verse, because even though he's antar bahir avastitam, he's existing within everything, I don't see him. I just drive to work and I complain that I have to sit in a cubicle, and then I don't like the way the way people do stuff. And I just become absorbed in the idea that I'm some independent living entity in the material world, but Krishna is within my heart. And yasmin yato yarhi yena cha yasya yasmad yasma yata yarutayas tapara parova bhava karoti vikaroti prataksa bhava sanchoditas tarakilam bhavatak swarupam. Prahlad says, no, everything you're doing is Krishna. Your paycheck, that's Krishna. That's his energy. And your boss, it's Krishna. Coming to you saying, like, you don't want to hang around the material world, right? And everything you use, your car, the gasoline in the car, it's all yasmin yato yarhi yenacha yes yasma. Whatever it is, every aspect of the world, that's Krishna, and he's there within the senses. And then there's sarvapadi vinirmuktam tapratvena nirmalam rishikena rishikesha sevanam bhaktir. And then one can do the practical devotional service with one's senses. Rupa Goswami says, and engage your senses in devotional service and different stages of advancement to come to understand that Krishna is antar bahir avastitam. He existing within and without you. And as you do devotional service with your senses, get up in the morning early. Don't be a sleepyhead. Seriously, don't be a sleepyhead. All successful people learn how to control their senses, especially sleep. They go to bed early. Don't be a hippie doofus. Go to bed early. Don't be hippie doofus. And get up early like a yogi. And then chant Hare Krishna after a nice bath. And then read Bhagavatam. Hear Bhagavatam. Take only prasadam. Offer everything to Krishna. And then do all your work. But just realize that it's all Krishna's energy. Sachindra Krishna told us the other day, as he picked us up from the airport. He said, how's the summer going? It was good. Everyone's on vacation. We said, oh, great. And he said, well, not so great. He got bored. And he said, work is good because it gives you something to do. And school is good too. This gives the kids something to do. And I've appreciated that because Krishna says, Tasmat sarveshu kaleshu mamanu smarayudyacha. Just, even though you're going to work, you have to go fight your fight out there in the material world. It's okay. You can get a electric leaf blower, start a little business, cleaning up yards. You can go to the office and ticky-ticky-tappy. Whatever it is you have to do it, he says. But just tasmat sarveshu kaleshu. Just remember me all the time because you got to work. And then he said, Mayarpita mano buddhir, mami vaishesika samshaya. There's no doubt that you'll attain perfection. So just remember the simple prayer of Queen Kunti. Is to offer yourself to Krishna. That's the essence of bhakti. So there's no more immaturity. Try to be embarrassed if you treat Krishna with indifference or if you forget how good he is to you. Namaste Purushan Tvajam. And remember that he's the supreme controller. That's another aspect. So don't think you're the controller. And just remember that we're servants of Krishna. Now we'll take a few reflections or questions. Or if you'd like to offer some cross-referencing from this verse or purport and Prahlad Maharaj, then you're welcome to. Rasa Sindhu Prabhu, always ready with nice questions. Please go ahead. And reflections.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj. A few questions and some reflection. Maybe I'll start with the reflections first. I was reflecting on the word alakshyam in this verse, and I realized that laksham means goal, and alaksham means not the goal. And I was thinking that how Queen Kunti is saying that Krishna is not the target, where he is avasthitam, he is present, but he is not the target. So we are not looking at him, but he is present, and that makes it invisible. But he's there. If we look, then he's going to manifest. He's going to appear out of it. And so I found that very interesting. The other thing, I like the idea of responding, you mentioned. And I was thinking that how Krishna is actually the first responder. We have first responders who, in times of emergency, they come up, they're the first ones. Or in Batman, they shine the bat signal and then the Batman appears suddenly. So Krishna is in that way the first responder. But it is our responsibility to make the call. The question that I have in the beginning, the other thing I found interesting was Krishna is localized, Queen Kunti says. He's puzzling and he reserves the right to not appear. And so in restaurants, we refuse the right to serve anyone. So Krishna has that sign that he has a choice, and that's what makes him as a person, that he's the supreme and yet he has a choice. The question that I have was, in the Mangalacharana that we were reading, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami says that the spiritual master is a plenary portion of Krishna, and then he says the instructing spiritual master is the personality of Krishna. And I wonder if there's a differentiation that he's pointing towards, or is this the idea of the principle that the spiritual master is always a part of Kṛṣṇa?
There, he does make those distinctions based on the idea of sambandha, abhideya, and prayojan. There are personalities who are respected, those teachers, those spiritual teachers within sambandha, abhideya, and prayojan. And he distinguishes that even when we talk about 18 Thakur Goreyaki Karayachina Atmasat, 18 Erachara Mandon Tine Mononat, that Madan Mohan is first attracting us away from the material world, and we get our sambandha relationship, and then Govinda Dev is the deity of Abhideya, and then Prayojan is Gopinath. So there's some correlation that he gives there between the different kinds of gurus. Yes?
I just had a question about this responsiveness. Sometimes it looks like Krishna's way of responding is his lack of responding. So I was wondering if you could speak on that principle.
Well, there's such a thing as a pregnant pause. And Krishna's timing is impeccable. That's why Rupa Goswami advises us to be patient. He comes at the exact right time. I may not know, I do not know how everything's fitting together, but Krishna does. And Radhika Raman Prabhu once in New Vrindavan gave a talk about the ways in which Krishna responds to devotees. And he gives us an opportunity by giving that pause to then appreciate more our helplessness. Like, why did he catch Prahlad nearer to the bottom of the cliff instead of at the very top, or even apprehend those who were going to throw him over? And in Krishna's reciprocation with us, he knows just when to do things to bring out our deeper sense of attachment and dependence on him. It was observed with Prabhupada when he was leaving the world, that he was bringing his devotees closer and closer in a sense of dependence on him. He wanted to draw that out of them. And also in his final days, he often would pose proposition. He would make he made a proposition that, take me around Govardhan Hill, and then the devotees had to talk amongst themselves to decide. My point is that main purpose Krishna has is in his timing to bring out our sense of dependence on him, and it comes at the right time, according to his superior vision. We have two on the board. Who's that on the far left? Oh, he looks like a corporate executive there. I couldn't tell. Vaikuntha Naika, all the way from
Hare
Mysore.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Dandavat Pranam Maharaj. Maharaj, I was wondering if you can please elaborate on that 8.7, where Krishna says that Tasmat Sarveshu Kaleshu Mahamanasmara Yudhyacha. Thinking of me do carry out the prescribed duty of fighting. Like, if you could please elaborate, like the moment of fighting, I'm guessing it might not be possible to think of Krishna and still fight. Similarly, for me, if I am working in the office in some meeting or writing some code, at that time, I'm not sure if we can. So, does it have a different meaning that?
Well, the
which
Prabhupada says in his purport that achieving that means to chant Hare Krishna. And if you can't chant Hare Krishna during the meeting, it'd be helpful if you chant before you go in the meeting. And if you have absorption in chanting before you go out and do your fighting, then you'll have a different perspective as you're doing your work because you've already aligned yourself properly. Bhakti parishano bhava viraktiranyata traishatrika eka kala prapadyamanase yatashna hastus tushti pushti shurai apayonugasam. That Kavi Yogendra compares bhakti to eating, and you get full. And then you feel satisfied and nourished. And if you feel satisfied and nourished by your chanting, in other words, you feel that you're self-satisfied when you go into the meeting and people start agitating because they're agitated in the mode of passion, and you've already touched some transcendence. You're going to come off differently in the meeting, and the effect of it is that you'll be guided by Kṛṣṇa because you've taken time to chant. That's one of the meetings, because if you read Prabhupada's purport, he says it means to work and also chant. So chant your rounds before you go out in the world. And I've said before, don't shop when you're hungry, because you'll buy stuff you don't need. And so similarly, when you're fulfilled before you go out into the world, then you also won't fall into all the traps. You won't be grouchy, and you won't respond emotionally to people. Does that help? Okay, there was one more on the board, and then we go to
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Dhanavad Pranam.
Hare Krishna.
So thank you for the wonderful class today. Such a nectarian topic to set the mood as many of us are preparing for the Kunti's prayers. I have one reflection and one question. So I was looking at this purport when we read it. So towards the end of purport, Srila Prabhupada mentions that Krishna reserves the right of not being exposed to persons who are not surrendered souls. This is in regards to the alakshya word. So elections are in the news, and Srila Prabhupada mentions this example a lot about the president of the country, that it's not our qualification to seek the president. The person may or may not choose to reveal himself to us. So that's how we should be thinking, that it's not my right. People ask like, oh, show me God, or where is God? But what is my qualification to see the God? God or Krishna will not reveal to me unless I'm surrendered. So I was thinking about this topic. And the question I have is, right before this, it says, Kunti herself was puzzled about whether Shri Krishna is all pervasive or localized. So it's said in more like a rhetorical mood, or is it like really she was puzzled whether Krishna is pervasive, all pervasive or localized? I wasn't clear about it.
Okay. Well, first of all, regarding your reflection, devotees have a little trick. It's a Britya Sevam. They know the way to Krishna's heart because Krishna loves his devotees so much. And the trick is that don't try to serve Krishna. Try to be das, 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 anudasaha. And if you find the servant of the servant of the servant of the servant somewhere, and you attach yourself in service, this is the back door. You can get in easily. You don't have to go through the guarded gate. Krishna will let you in because it's not what you know, it's who you know that counts in bhakti. And you just go like, I'm with him. That this person walks up to the gate, and it, like Prabhupada said, if you become friends with the Prime Minister's children, like you go to school with them and you hang out, and then they invite you over, that's it. You just get in because you're a friend of somebody who's so dear to them that they're not going to deny it. The daughter of the Prime Minister, Daddy. Like, all right, just make sure they don't have a gun. Or whatever it is, you get in. So there is a way in which this is the great secret that Prahlad Maharaj is revealing. That if you're Britya Sevam, you render service to the Britya, the servants of the Lord. Then you easily can approach. And the bewilderment that Kunti expresses is expressed by all devotees. Narada Muni, when he went to see Krishna in Dwarka, and he was so amazed at seeing Krishna performing individual pastimes in every palace. The first one he went to, Krishna came out. He was there with Rukmini, and he came out to greet Narada, worshipped him, washed his lotus feet, and Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says Narada Muni tolerated because he knew Krishna was just trying to set an example to worship a Brahmin sadhu. And then he went to the next house, and Krishna was doing something else, but he came out as if he hadn't seen him yet. And Narada's like, all right, I get it. And he went to the next place, and he kept going around, and he was so amazed that although Krishna, who could then comprehend that? That's why Krishna, Maya tatamidam sarvam jagadavyattam murtina mastani sarvabhutani nachaham tesha vashtita. In the 9th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna saying that this is my Aishwarya. You're not going to get it. It's not something you're going to get. How one personality becomes many. In fact, we were talking last night, Jai Kanai Prabhu, on the way home from the Harinam. It's like, where do devotees fit in the spiritual world? And sometimes they're in both pastimes. Try to figure that out. And so Krishna's inconceivable. And his devotees then look and see, well, you're amazing. If God wasn't so amazing that we didn't get it, and we kept being amazed, then he wouldn't be God, if you could figure him out. It's like, I got it now. You're all-pervading, but you're here with me. I figured it out. No, you never figure it out. You can hear it, but when you see it, even the smartest people, Brahma is a devotee, and he saw Krishna as a little boy, and Krishna has expanded himself into all his associates. And Brahma's going, which one's which? And then what he did was, he says, Gyane Priyasamudapasyanamad. He told everybody, don't try to figure this out. Don't intellectualize it. He said, just hear. Stani stita shuti katan tanavan manobir. Worship it. Come to the point. That's what Radhika Raman Prabhu was saying too when he gave his masterful, one of his masterful lectures, and at the end he said, that's where you want to end, where you're going, okay, I offer my heartfelt obeisances to the Supreme Personality of God. It is so inconceivable. Who could figure him out? So Kunti is in that mode also. She knows who he is. That's what Prabhupada says in the first part of the purport. He's not making some mistake worshiping her nephew. It's like, oh, nephew. She knows, Supreme Personality of Godhead, but as my nephew? Come on. And I know you're inside and out, but how does it work? It's very difficult to understand. Yes, right. Kṛṣṇa. Did it answer both parts of your question? Nirkula's looking out for you. You're on mute. We can read lips. Go ahead.
Hare Krishna. Sorry. Yeah, so if I summarize my takeaways, like even the most exalted, topmost devotees like Kunti, Mahani, and Narad Muni, there's a chance that they will get bewildered, amazed. So for us normal people like us, we just don't need to intellectualize, as you said. Just follow and worship.
Yeah, and some devotees, it's not like they care that much. We know from when Uddhava brought a letter to the gopis in Vrindavan, they're just pining in separation. They can't sleep because their eyes are always, their face is wet with tears. And then Uddhava comes there with a message from Lord Krishna, says to them, don't worry, I'm all pervading. And then again, when they come to Kurukshetra, and the gopis and Nanda and Yashoda haven't seen Krishna for over 100 years, and finally they meet him, and he starts again with that. And the gopis, Ahushchatena lina nava padada vinda yogeshvara hridi vichinta aghada bodhai. That he said, you're giving information for yogis. We're just poor householders. We don't know anything. And then Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, this is sarcastic. They're being sarcastic with Kṛṣṇa. And they're a little angry too. It's like, you're bringing this up again? You did that. You brought that same message to us in Vrindavan. Now we come all the way to see you in Kurukshetra, and you're bringing it up again. And Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says that this information about all pervasiveness, you're within everything, that's how you can understand me. He says, that's like the sunshine. And the gopis are saying, we're getting scorched by that. They said, give us the moonshine, the moon-like beauty of your face. That's what we want. We don't care about all that other stuff. That's also there, although devotees know everything and they understand tattva, but when they love Kṛṣṇa, they don't want to hear that. They just want to love him. And they don't even consider it. Even when Yashoda sees within the mouth of Kṛṣṇa, because everyone was complaining about him when they were playing, and they came and said, Kṛṣṇa ate dirt. It's like, what did Balaram said? He says it too. And then, Kṛṣṇa, get over here. They're all saying you ate dirt. He said, they're lying. Bunch of liars. She says, you sit down right now, open your mouth. She looks in, she sees herself with Kṛṣṇa on her lap, and then all the cosmic energies and everything working. She's like, okay, close your mouth. That's all right. For those who love Kṛṣṇa, then the Aishvarya is suppressed. And Kṛṣṇa may show it from time to time, it's always there, but they're not concerned with that. And whether he's internal or external, they just want to love Kṛṣṇa. Uh-oh, we're going over time and there's more questions. Yes, Kṛṣṇa.
Thank you, Guru Maharaj, for the...
I hope that answers your question.
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Guru Maharaj, for the wonderful class. I have a question regarding what on Vaikuntha Nayak Prabhu's answer you gave. So I chant my rounds before starting my day because I feel like I will get crushed by material energy if I don't. So it's like there is some fear, and you said that to chant the rounds, so Kṛṣṇa will guide us throughout the day. So is my mood correct in chanting? It's not out.
You don't want to get crushed?
No.
And you're afraid? Yeah, that's good. That's a reference. You can reference 10th Canto, Chapter 2. In it, Devaki is afraid all the time because Kṛṣṇa is going to manifest from her, apparently. It's not a normal birth because he comes out. He doesn't really come out of her womb. He just appears first from the mind and heart of Vasudeva, and then the heart of Devaki, and then he appears with 4 arms and jewelry and a helmet and so forth. But it's described there that she was fearful because she was in a prison, and she knew that Kamsa wanted to kill her offspring. So there you'll find the commentary of Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, who says that the fear that Devaki had is something that all devotees should have for material nature. And when one has fear, as Prahlad Maharaj expresses, Naham bibhemya jita teta bayana kasya jivarka netra burkuti rabasoga dhamscha antra shada shatajakesha shanku karna nirrada bita digibad aribinna kagra trastos mahankripana vatsala dusahogra samsara chakra kadanadgra satampranita badhasva karme burashatamit mulam prito pavarga sharanam Vaisesika danu. Said, I'm not afraid of you, everyone else is freaked out, Brahma included. But even your high wedge-like ears, your roaring, that's scaring everybody all over the universe. That doesn't scare me, but your Vishnu Maya does. That I'll be reabsorbed by that. And so Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says, if you're afraid, then that fear kills the Sadgarbha Asuras who represent Kam, Krodh, Lobh, Mada, Moha, and Matsarya. And that's what's necessary. All those 6 have to be killed, just like Devaki's offspring, the first 6 were killed, right? And once those obstacles are gone, killed by fear of the material nature, then you can enter into the bhakti proper. Okay, a couple more really quick. Vijay Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Maharaj, for your nice class. Just in response to what you just said, Prabhupada said we have 2 diseases. We are not enough afraid of Maya, and we like to change things. And then about Devavrata Prabhu's class about response. I found this, I don't know who wrote it, but it's very beautiful. I asked for strength and Kṛṣṇa gave me difficulties to make me strong. I asked for wisdom and he gave me problems to solve. I asked for courage and Kṛṣṇa gave me obstacles to overcome. I asked for love and he gave me troubled people to help. I asked for favors and he gave me opportunities. I received nothing I wanted but everything I needed. Thank you, Kṛṣṇa.
Tattoo. That's a tattoo. Nicely done. Mayapur Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you for the wonderful class. You mentioned about shelter. I've been earlier in my life being in the Pushti Marg background. The Maha Mantra there is Shri Kṛṣṇa Sharanam Mama, taking shelter of Kṛṣṇa. So if you can elaborate what exactly taking shelter of Kṛṣṇa means. I have some idea, but the mood, the activity, so we can progress further in that aspect.
First thing is to accept those things that are favorable. So make a list. Make a list of everything that's favorable for Krishna consciousness. And then on the other side of the page, make a list of things that are unfavorable. Do you have any ideas on one side or the other? Anybody? So then on the side of things that are favorable, then underline them and say, this is how I'm going to introduce it into my life. Like, name one thing favorable. Chanting Hare Krishna when?
Early
At
morning.
midnight? In the morning. So chanting Hare Krishna before the sun comes up. How's that? And then you put that down. That's a way of taking shelter of Krishna practically from our side. And then name something that's unfavorable. Longer list? Yeah. What? Staying up late at night and watching TV. That's definitely unfavorable. Unless it's a show about, Krishna. Then it's semi. So then with that on the other side, and take steps to not do that. Those are the first parts of the sixfold path of Sharanagati. It's so practical. You could make a little chart. You could make millions, actually, if you make a chart and distribute it for people to use, that you could improve your life that way. And you're doing something deliberately for Krishna. That's when Krishna reciprocates, especially when you make some sacrifice for him. Okay, there was nobody else, so we'll take the last one, which will be Devavrata Prabhu. And then we'll give a summary, and then we'll go to the last parts of our program.
I was listening to a class by Shiva Ramaraj a few years ago, and he was giving a series on Sharanagati. And he was emphasizing that Jiva Goswami in the Bhakti Sandarbha says that this point of Goprit Ve Varanam Tata is the Anga, and all the other ones are Angi. So even if one is mechanically trying to apply the processes of surrender, if one doesn't have a feeling of allegiance to a Vaishnava, to Krishna, then all of those other qualities, they can't actually develop organically. I thought it was an interesting point in relationship to Mayapur Prabhu.
Sharanagati, Britya Sevam, take shelter of a Vaishnava. That's actually the most important aspect. And both Prahlad and Rahuganai tat tapasana yatin na chejaya nirvapanad grihadva na chandasanaiva jalagdi surir vina mahatpada rajobhishekam. So just in conclusion, a couple of last points. And that is to remember that Krishna, he's the Ishwar. He's also Avigna, which means he's intelligent. Everything about Krishna's in creation is intelligent, and Krishna is intelligent too. Remember, he's really smart. And you can test living entities who are parts and parcels of Krishna. They're really smart. They know stuff. They can figure things out, like your mood or whatever. So imagine how powerful Krishna is, especially as there in your heart. So remember that he's very intelligent. So the next is that he wants to reveal himself. And it's not that he's trying to hide, but he wants to reveal himself, but we have to be qualified. And the pauses, as Vijay Prabhu brought out so nicely in that poem, where he wants to qualify us so we can see him, because we have to have a certain level of receptivity to see him. So he's receptive to everything we do. He's very intelligent. He's also responsive. And then he's waiting for us, finally. As in the song I found online it's country music. You like country, right? Country western. Like I used to say when selling the Krishna book, do you like westerns? They say, yeah, and I go, great, this is an Eastern. And if they say no, they don't like westerns, that's okay too. I say, perfect, this is an Eastern. But in the country song, I found the refrain in the song was, I thought you'd never ask. Have you ever heard that? And it's in the context of the song, they're lovers, and one of them finally proposes and said, yeah, how about it? We're going to get married or what? And the other one says, I thought you'd never ask. And that's Krishna's mood towards us. Because we're the ones who didn't ask yet. We're so absorbed in how to build a spaceship to go to the moon or figure out how to make data go faster. Everything fine-tuning the material nature. And then Krishna's waiting. I thought you'd never ask. And so we could know that he's Suhrit. He's such a friend to us. He has so much love for us that he just comes with us wherever we are, and he's just waiting. And if we just ask the question and offer our obeisances, then everything will come from that. It's not complicated. It's from the heart, and it's very straightforward. And that's how you start bhakti, no matter where you are, is keep asking Krishna, may I please have a relationship with you? And just keep doing it. And the chanting of Hare Krishna, if it's very sincerely, if we do it from the heart and remember, out of gratitude that Krishna's there with us and we get to chant his names because he gave us a human tongue. And we just sincerely try, even if we don't know Sanskrit or we do a lot of things wrong. If you get that part right, then everything good will come. Yes, yes, bhakti bhagavati kinjana, etc. Dear Srila Prabhupada, dear Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Shri Shri Panchatattva, Shri Shri Radha Madan Mohan Shri Shri Lakshmi Shingadev, if you so desire, please empower us with a sincere desire in our hearts to serve the servants of your servants, a million times removed, in cooperation, in very humble spirit, especially spreading Krishna consciousness, because we know that's the most dear to you. Thank you for considering our request. Om Tat Sat. Everyone agrees with this prayer, in whole or in part. Please unmute and say Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.